Button.
Chapter 11.
Accessibility.
This is 70 by Ely James.
Menu
All rights
expanded
reserved,
with
2023.
submenu.
Today would be February 20th, 2024.
Normal text. Font comfort tab. Hordes were revisiting thoughts and studies of earmarking characteristics of sets of complications as though competing with what buckled the Byzantine Empire to its knees when suddenly the great consensus to conclude upon had dominated the day's narrative. The pandemic encroaching upon crippling epidemic in the RU4ZR vaccinations that were designed to combat the adverse and unfortunate illnesses in what weaken immune systems and were unto myriad complications including neurological ailments. Brushfire wars trepidation became replaced by gross mutations in what professionals in the medical community had said were manifesting earmarkings of catastrophic plague to invariably make a memory of it. The minds behind the manipulation of hands on the doomsday clock would have been received as more credible if they'd inverted their surmising unto confusion empowered by men as symbolic blood-red moon reflections were said to symbolically emanate from judgments from men and man's warring animus as consummate retaliatory arbiter instead of the sign of a holy God's judgment standard as vindication, as said curious men freshly appearing on earthen soil in what's referred to as the Jerusalem of the nations. The crimson moon on this pleasant evening having a mind to transfer its softer pale to preside over events in Rome. The talented coordinators, choreographers and stage artist and event staff helps had a will to sail this winged event into homes and spectators' hearts in the same manner that they would convene and land it. The palatial veranda in Mind's composite post-twilight bless enhanced by basilica as ornate as was the rotunda opulent and teeming with awe that's any softened elegance was enhanced by depiction of a special strength not unlike what the sword-donning Peter statue alongside accompanying mighty lions, live and those of marble, did lend to this special night. What could possibly account for any preempting an event's itinerary overhaul? The 100 doves from behind the stage in large wicker cage enclosure that was mostly unseen from stage front and center were set loose to ride and defy the invisible aerial rampway over top of the centering aisle stretch and arch leading to the man behind the commingling forefront of battens with impossibly brightly colored ribbons affixed and whirling and looping about from the young and skipping dancers' small clutching hands. A multi-hued laser light show. Like peering into the kaleidoscope as waves of oceanic green shades and blues generous hues adapted from its rich pre-twilight shade of impallited maize appear to frolic with moon's scarlet suffused with myriad flashes of red and yellow shapes enlivening the mix with dazzling purple and green shapes that filter rich only to dissipate and then flounder and flutter in terrific rippling shapes that render the stage as some mobile type of intergalactic landing strip that moved, illuminating same unseen trajectory path from high up and to the rear of the highest of elevations constructed as outside balcony and seating area outside area as airborne trail for the musical Dove Cartel. So a successful takeoff and landing. As saying goes, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. And yes, as we shall see if for no other reason than that you should comprehend what the on-location reporter had meant when she'd later say, with slight but considerable alteration from her pre-Good Friday service greetings, there were 2 types here. Really. Those who'd demand their money back and the many more who'd said in various ways that they'd gladly fork over thrice the purview's fee just to have all turn out as it had. First to vicariously participate as we turn to behold the Promethean heights of awe-inspiring and insurmountable summit left ungrazed by the pyre of declining parishioners in Vatican's Peter's Square as indomitable phoenix. Dear readers, scarcely the appropriate venue to speak such an address. I admit to all of you who are mostly under the bless of religious affection while assembling on this wonderful evening in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican of the Nations, as I like to call it. But as Padre Pietra and I have alongside others discussed, we decided that we would be woefully remiss if turning away any opportunity to during such a volatile climate speak unto what concerns so the inestimable many. Hearts are weighed down and the hopes do languish and the world sure can fully advantage stimulus in the form of a peace treaty that could revert the tide and comfort our hearts instead. Yes. Our task then is to comfort the hearts from these troubling dreams affecting persons terribly. Beyond premonition, these, and hopefully only in their nightmare form, appear as terror for the nations in whom folks say shall surely appear, and whose travesties and tragedies are already in the mind multitudinous and disheartening. So continued Nasser Abu Mada Hussein, elected ambassador of the nations. These men said to be prophets for such a time as this. As the many people do say,
It's Arthur and Sturge permanently until I
if left unchecked,
realize the goals of 70.
could constitute the threat beyond weapons of mass destruction, although these also
Ely James,
stand to
February
benefit
20th,
instead from my
2024. 70
our
is a copyright production.
future peace initiatives.
Copyright production already
I'm
for
sure
2023.
these men might precede such treaty that,
.gov.
as required as it is, she sure shall take some time to order a right before engrafting any from such articles. Or very well the
Chapter
treaty
11.
might precede them, in which case I hope to say that perchance they come to partake in the festivities and cork the bubbly with us. We shall
Good
see.
Friday on
Ladies and gentlemen, to some extent we can only control the timing of the one. Yes.
We switched to a stadium.
Either way, I
football
understand that the once palpable threat of communism was once felt as egregious sore and wound
This is
bleeding dry
full-time.
hopeful sentiments of a world
Looking
grown
for an artist
vulnerable.
to make the cover.
Great.
5 or 6
To remind how that these men face their seemingly impossible challenges as we brace together for what we must counter.
Almost like a snow globe with
To
5
cut to
different
the
scenes
chase,
from
these
the
men,
production in it.
if these shall
Airbrush
truly in our
preferably.
time appear in expected
Lions,
manner,
prophets, Jesus,
the reports of
candelabras,
dreams uncannily similar in
blood red
nature, and
moon,
I've heard the few say that already they've seen them. Only these also shall,
tractor gallows,
assuming that that time
Feet
shall
on
come
shore.
when reasonable minds concur,
all kinds of things.
benefit from my, or our,
I guarantee you it'll be seen. The artwork.
Peace
So if you want to
initiatives.
call me, I think I put a bit on
I understand that the once
Fiverr.com.
palpable threat of communism was once felt as an egregious sore wound bleeding dry hopeful sentiments of a world grown vulnerable and desperate, and that had yearned for a freer day. As you see good men under the encouragement of a U.S. president and then papal leader preceding him, who is not unlike who sits on stage in the chair behind me in Padre Pietro de Rome Dianas, who shall address the people and cameras soon. That those from generations ago made quite the wonderful tag team. This President Reagan and Eminence in Vatican's John Paul II. I think that's it. Is that right? He turned to Pietro Dianas, who through a smile softly replied while affirmatively nodding. The Catholic world's own. Yes. Thank you. Pontiff. Turning to face the large crowd assembled at Peter's Square, he smilingly motioned with the notion of an all-encompassing salute.
Soon, if not
Shifting his panning glance as though evenly like a camera sitting atop a tripod. Nodding repeatedly.
I don't want to tie up this
Well, as sure as he or they were instrumental in breaking through the barriers differentiating free men from subjects of state or government, determining a stricken limitation to freedoms available.
From another account,
well,
fully
friends, consider the dire need and opportunity. So shall I and the esteemed Padre Pietro Dianas work hard to broker in Jerusalem the terms of peace there. It is with pleasure that I announce a televised meeting to follow this address to share you all in on the ceremony. Or, the beginning of the process. Peace. She won't come to us on her own accord, so we shall go to her on our free volition. And,
professional quality.
So I've sworn to make her reality for the entire world. The crowd interrupted with enthusiastic applause as they smilingly watch on and trade glimpses amongst themselves. Many more words unto similar gist and verb did Nasser Abu Mada Hussein speak before the pontiff approached the podium.
Like I said, like 5 or 6
friends, I welcome you with a hearty welcome who attend this event this evening, and he switched on his feet and peered over his shoulder to indicate them with the butt of his gnarly cane. Those of you who watch on television and computers, I welcome as attendees joining these right here in Peter's Square for welcoming news that we feel shall boldly revert the tide of heated discord. I do not speak to only Catholics but to the world of all religions desiring peace, as do we. In jest to a man opposing me to the face about duplicitousness while saying that I create division instead, I asked him how is that we could be derided as division makers when it is I who used the term Chrislamicist recently when asked what differentiates Christianity from Islam.
Directly and sign a affidavit
Spiritually speaking,
non-affiliation. just so that I
saying
can
that where
protect
we
my
are all
copyright.
God's
I hope you
children, there
understand.
really aren't any differences
Very
that should unto
professional.
division
Doesn't
consist.
cost you anything extra.
We breached
I'm the
a
one who'll
gap
be
when
paying
we
for it.
become more tolerant and less exclusive.
412-683-1294.
I believe.
Phil Vino, if you're hearing
Another
this, good
slight
old buddy
utterance
of
of
the past,
rustling as several
why don't you give
people
me a call?
again
I'd
as
love to give you
silently
the
as a
job.
crowd could begin to clap their hands and to in the various ways engage each other. A cardinal aide did unimposingly approach the pontiff with his torso somewhat out in front of his feet that would seem to have a mind to shuffle briskly instead of jog. The pontiff gazed askance with his ear and cheek canted toward the aide as he later quickly whispered into the pontiff's ear, who then indicated his appreciation without averting his crowd-centered gaze. The pontiff was led to his chair by cardinals flanking his either side, from where he would resume from his handwritten page of dictation type. Raising and lowering his glasses on his nose once as though to take a portion of the script into memory, he cleared his throat and began. Children and sharetakers in the mercies of our blessed eternal Mother's graces and her Son and our Lord Jesus.
Audio catalog and YouTube
I outline
studio.
my speech with a salient point as precursor.
That's not my.
Considering that we are all children of God and that we are all flawed humans in desperate need of God.